I don't need your sympathy, thanks. So thanks, Ethan. Thanks very much for inviting me along here. And I don't know how you know it's a good talk because you haven't heard it, but hopefully you'll enjoy it. Everyone will enjoy the talk. So I suppose this talk came about as a result of I'm aware there are talks in other areas, other places not far from here in North Belfast. But I thought, why don't we organise a talk here, and then get some people over the door to see what this, what's the exciting things that are happening in this building. And obviously, it's still very much a work in progress. So hopefully, we'll be able to organise other talks if this one doesn't crash and burn, which is a distinct possibility. So yes, I wish I'd brought my sunglasses with me today. I was doing all right until Jack turned up, and so I'm getting furious glare here to my right. Oh no, Jack doesn't. He doesn't. You want to see his underpants? No, you don't actually. Jack is the only man that coordinates with his steering wheel. His steering wheel and his tie actually match. They're both sparkly. So. I'm from East Belfast. Don't judge me, it doesn't make me a bad person. So I did a talk about East Belfast, what's in a street name, as part of the Templemore talks at the Templemore Baths. So I thought, well, why not then try to do a talk over in North Belfast. And I suppose the idea of the interest in street names comes from a song. So there's a local band from Rathcoole. They were called Four Idle Hands, and they were on the Good Vibrations record label, and they had a song called 99 Streets. 99 Streets was written about Rathcoole, because Rathcoole, there's 99 streets in Rathcoole, and they're named in alphabetical order. So when you go in at the bottom of Rathcoole, all the streets start with an A, and then as you go up, then I think it was to help taxi. This is pre-sat nav, so help taxi drivers and delivery people. It's pre-Amazon, find their way around. So in East Belfast, I remember telling my mum this story, and then she said, well, in East Belfast, there's streets named in alphabetical order too. And I thought she's maybe got that right, but of course, I shouldn't have doubted her, because it was totally right. The streets are off Willowfield Street, so they're Athens Street, Bangor Street, Canton Street, something else, Danube Street maybe, Euston Street, Frankfurt Street, and it continues around the corner. So the moral of the story is never think you know more than your mother, because in my case, I don't. So yes, there's 20 streets, or 20 collections of streets in North Belfast, which we'll talk about. So, but just before, this is my disclaimer, it's very much a personal selection. So don't say, oh, what about, don't want any what about, just what about me? Because if I haven't mentioned the street you might find interesting, I apologise in advance. So tell me about it though afterwards, and I'll maybe see if Ethan would have a second talk. So I'm not getting any positive body language coming from that side of the room, so let's say. So I thought I would start with a street that I'll not talk about for fairly obvious reasons. So this is the street here. I'll not talk about it for one reason, because it's in West Belfast. So anyway, 20 streets. The first one's not far from here. Now, again, if I mispronounce, well, you can keep me right then. But to pronounce it even. So if I mispronounce any of these streets, my apologies. You can correct me. I'm not precious. And so I would say Ardley Street. Okay, cool. Whew. That's it. One out of only another 19 to go. And do you know the story about Ardley Street? Well, that is a story. So moving on to the next one then. So Ardley Street, not far from here, as you know, up on the left, up as you go up the Old Park Road. And so this is a mill that's... So a man called John Savage, JP, in 1868, when Robert was a kid, He applied to name a new street linked from the Old Park Road to his mill. And this is his mill, and the mill was called Ardeley, and he wanted to call it Ardeley Street. So Ardeley is from the Irish, again, apologies for the pronunciation, Ard and Loa, which stands for height of the calf. And it's a rural townland about 1.5 miles north of Dundrum, County Down. So that's his mill. It doesn't exist anymore. And this is John Savage himself. Am I still in shot? No problem. It's not all about you, Robert. It's all about me. So I'm joking. Savage was a wealthy industrialist with a flax spinning mill at Ardeley Street, which he renamed after his house. And he built many half houses on Savage's Row for his employees of the mill. So in a half house, a family lived upstairs and another family lived downstairs. He became the mayor of Belfast in 1872, and he received his knighthood from Earl Spencer, Lord Lieutenant in Botanic Gardens in the same year. During the Belfast riots of 1872, he put forth a proclamation that closed all public houses for a week in order to quell the sectarian trouble that blighted the town. So I'm thinking of doing the same next week for the Fla. We'll see how that goes. No, I don't think that'll work. Savage's civic duties, however, became too much for him, and suffering from depression, he took his own life by slashing his throat in his bathroom at his house in 1883. After his death, so this is the house here. After his death, the house became the residence of John Bain, who was an estate agent and land agent. And in 1853, the house was purchased by Belfast Mercantile College, who over the next 10 years completely relocated from their premises at Glenravel Street, renaming the college. Anybody guess? It still exists to this day. Belfast High School. So that's Belfast High School. So Ardeley still stands today. So there's a connection to Ardeley Street and Belfast High School. The next one then, again, not too far from here, there's a series of streets up the top of this road on the right, all named after Bally's. So there's Ballynear, Ballyclare. I was nearly getting in all kinds of trouble taking that photograph. You know, I was dreading somebody coming to the window and telling me that you're not from around these parts. So why are you taking photographs of my daughter? That's why it's a bit blurry. Maybe I was keen to get out. Ballycastle, you can see they're very tastefully decorated, and Ballycarry. So, of course, down near God's own country where Frankie and Robert live. So sadly, there's a plaque for the Belfast Blitz in 1941 at just up at the shops, up at the top here on the right, to commemorate 30 people who lost their lives during the Belfast Blitz of 1941. And there were actually 29 people who died on the raid of Easter Tuesday, 15th to 16th of April, and 26 in that area, and 26 were residents of Ballynear Street. So amongst the casualties were six members of the Douglas family, Emily and her 5 children. So this is City Cemetery, and this is her final resting place, this headstone. So you can see then Emily here. On the headstone, that smoke detector isn't on the headstone, but you can see then William, he was serving with the Royal Artillery. In other words, he was serving overseas when his wife and 5 children were killed as a result of the Belfast Blitz. So they're commemorated there. Sammy, is it Millie? Jim, Peggy, and Sally died as a result of enemy action. So that's what that means, the Belfast Blitz. But worse, and this is not Ballynear Street, but it's Annandale Street, which is not far from Ballynear Street. But 11 people died at number 4 Ballynear Street. 8 members of the Clark family, Jeremiah and Lavinia, and 6 of their children. And also 3 members of the Thompson family, including Jeremiah and Lavinia's married daughter, Eunice Thompson, who was 19, their son-in-law, John Thompson, who was 21, and their granddaughter, Joan, who was only 2. So out of those 11 casualties, only 4 of the bodies were identified and given Christian burial, sadly. So in total, 34 people lived in, living in the Bally streets up the top of the road there, died during the air raids. So the number on the plaque is wrong. So this is the next one. This is a very simple one. It's down view off the Antrim Road. And I don't really have any story to tell about that, apart from the view. So if you look down from the Antrim Road, down view, what do you see but County Down? So that's where it comes from. I kind of like that kind of thing. It's something simple. So it's the view of Down. So there's also a street in Green Island direction called Downview as well. So that's what it is, just a view of County Down. Dunmore, the Dunmore development then. Again, not a million miles from here, Dunmore Park, Mews and Avenue. And it's a relatively recent development, only built in this century. And does anybody like to guess what used to be on that site? Nobody likes to show off, Robert. Yes, Dunmore Stadium, exactly, was there prior to that. So that's a couple of, those are a couple of photographs of Dunmore. So it opened, this Dunmore Stadium opened in 1928, and races were held there until 1997, and the stadium itself closed in the year 2000. So then those houses were built from 2003 actually. They're located east of a house called Dunmore House, which was in the area, and it used to be where this man lived, John Preston. He was a wealthy linen merchant and later mayor of the town, and he died at his home, Dunmore House, in 1890, and then the house was demolished in 1950. So this is his business premises, John Preston and Sons. So this is the old White Linen Hall. That's the back of the White Linen Hall. That's Linen Hall Street. So just the housing executive headquarters is there. So John Preston had his building here. And I've completely forgotten what line of work it was. But, pardon? Oh, sorry. But no, it was possibly an optician's. And he did a number of things, but it was possibly one of them was an optician. It was an optical company. But you can see whatever he did, he was doing very well for himself. If he could afford a day's res like this and a big house like Dunmore. So Dunmore Crescent, Drive, and also Walk were built on the side of the house from 1956. So if you go online, I'll not mention any particular websites because Lisa's here, but if you go online, it basically says that all of those houses are built on the site of Dunmore Stadium, but that's in fact incorrect. It's the first 3 ones that are built on the site of the stadium. These ones, the Crescent, the Drive, and the Walk, nearly said predeceased. You can tell I'm used to graveyards. Preview that development. So next one then is this street. Now this street is quite it's a short name anyway, but it's even shorter. This old sign has fallen apart. So it should say this EI Street, but the I and the E in the street have all fallen off.
Have they been saved? Because they were lying on the ground.
Were they? All right.
Should have grabbed themselves.
Should have.
Lived there on that street when he came to Belfast.
Right. So there's a bit of a conjecture about much speculation about the name of EI Street. So some people think it's the initials of 3 of Chichester's daughters who all died. I know. He can never go to a pantomime, sure he couldn't. Have I ever done this to your talk? Oh no, I have. Who all died in a house fire at Belfast Castle when it was down in its original location down near Castle Street, Castle Arcade, Castle Lane, etc. But the most conclusive evidence of how it got its name comes from Miss Olive McCrory. She wrote to a columnist in the Belfast newsletter in November 1937, regarding a previous article he had written. She said, "The information you have given is not quite in accordance with the facts. Eia House was built by my father, the late Robert Augustus McCrory, solicitor of Belfast, on a portion of ground purchased by him. That my father got the idea of the name for the perusal of old from the perusal of old ordnance maps of London is correct. The tradition that the name represents the initial letters of the Christian names of 3 of my father's daughters is of course incorrect, since at the time the house was built and named, he had not 3 daughters, the first letters of whose names made up this combination. Although, as it happened in later years, such a tradition might have some foundation." So she's kind of saying, you're wrong, but I can understand why you were wrong. So Robert McCrory did go on to have 3 daughters whose name began with the letters E-I-N-A: Elizabeth, Isabella, and Anna. So that's the mixture of that's where that's where that story has come from. The fact that he had the 3 letters, the 3 daughters.
So did he name his daughters and the match with the street?
Possibly, yeah. Mark is asking this. It's a bit of a leading question because he has named his 2 sons after Scottish and Irish islands. Scottish islands, Barra and Lewis, and his daughter Kerry. We'll not say anything about how they all got their names. Did you and Michelle Holiday there? It's a bit like David Brooklyn Beckham, but a local version. No, thankfully not. So this is the area of Eia in London itself. It's a medieval manor in Middlesex, and now close to the city of Westminster in London, on land adjacent to the River Tyburn, a reduced catchment form of which flows beneath the courtyard and south wing of Buckingham Palace. So ownership of the site changed hands many times. Its owners included Edward the Confessor. So this is a screen grab of Edward the Confessor from the Bayeux Tapestry, which is touring at the moment, isn't it, in England, I think? And it also belonged to the Edith of Wessex in late Saxon times. So that's the story with Eia Street. And yes, as his daughter said when she was writing to the newsletter, she said that it comes from him perusing Ordnance Survey maps of London. So he's maybe just looked and he didn't.
The pattern of that was at the time, sort of, you've been thinking about some of the East Belfast named after places in London as well.
True.
It is being quite fancy.
It was, yeah.
Notions.
So yeah, like Sydenham. Yeah.
I think there's another couple.
So
Like
Peter,
Wandsworth, maybe.
Wandsworth and Wormwood. Yeah.
So Peter, it has nothing to do with Allworthy. They like Allworthy Avenue and stuff like that beside it.
Allworthy was a road or something, was it?
Was it what?
A road or something.
Well, here, come to talk number 2, and I'll get to the bottom of the Allworthy story. So
No, the thing I heard a long time ago was Ephraim Isaac Allworthy, EIA. And
oh yes, I'd heard that as well.
It was allocated to him, but he didn't give it a name. Just had his initials to be named properly. And it's stuff like that. But
yeah, funny enough, yes, I had forgotten that, Rainer. I have also heard that story, but going from the paper, and from what the lady of the manor said as such, I would kind of tend to go with that rather than the Allworthy story. But so Evelyn Gardens. Hopefully Rainer's not going to correct me here. Evelyn Gardens is almost certainly named after Lady Evelyn Harriet Ashley Cooper. She was a granddaughter of the 3rd Marquess of Donegal. And that follows the Donegal Estates established pattern of commemorating family members and local street names. So in the city centre then, we've got Donegal Place, Arthur Street, etc. But up here then, up in North Belfast, up near the castle, the Donegals then, they kind of they supported the suburban expansion in the North Belfast. So in 1884, there's an advertisement for sites on Princess Anne Avenue, which I don't actually think ever existed, and then Evelyn Gardens. So by 1901, the Evelyn Gardens existed, and it appears there were substantial villas in the street with names like Rosebery Villas, Marsville, and Victoria Villas. So its early inhabitants were merchants, commercial agents, clergy, and other professional class residents. So also connection to the Donegals then was Donegal Park Gardens and Avenue. This was only, Frank, it's my talk. This was Donegal Park Gardens only came into existence on April 2018, so it's relatively new, as you perhaps know, after the restoration of the, as Frankie points out, the church there behind that, the Chapel of the Resurrection. So you can see it was, this is the company that did it, Alskia, and so they wanted this area, the area surrounding the Chapel of the Resurrection to be renovated. But this great photograph here is the Chapel of the Resurrection as it was initially when it was built for the Chichesters, and you can see Belfast Castle there. So just, you couldn't possibly do that view now because of the amount of houses and the amount of vegetation, but that was it back in the day.
Yes, sir. That was the first building built in this area of North Belfast, that chapel.
So it predates the castle?
Predates the castle. And it was built as a memorial to the Earl of Belfast.
Yeah.
Cool.
It was completed in 1870. Sorry for getting right into it.
No, it's fine. You sure? Also in the area then, Donegal Park Avenue, and as well as Donegal Park Square. So, and also then we have Chichester Avenue, not far from there. So the name comes from the Chichester family, landlords of Belfast from 1603, when lands were granted to Sir Arthur Chichester by James I, shortly before appointing him as Lord Deputy of Ireland. Chichester built the castle in 1611, roughly where Castle Place and Castle Street are today. And the family was originally from North Devon. And so the second Marcus, he ceased to be a significant Belfast landlord when he, selling much of his property from the 1820s onwards to repay his credit card debts, to repay his debts. Chichester Avenue features in the Street Directive of 1884, and the Irish signage was put up in July 2023. So I kind of like these signs, and I think it's kind of cheapened a little bit by the more modern signs. It's not a comment on dual language, it's just an observation. I think that these things, some of them are, they say some of them are listed, and I don't think you'll ever list that. But also, as you guys will know, in some of these old street signs then, they have the postcode down the bottom right to help the postman, so post people. So we're very helpful here to taxi drivers, delivery drivers, and postmen. So the next one then is, again, not too far from here, on up the street here on the left of Ardley Street. And I was down Ardley Street trying to take this photograph, trying to get a photograph of the street, and I thought, what on earth is Galgany? So it's a relatively new development, but it's named after this lady here. That's a very unfortunate positioning for them. So Gemma Galgany was known as Gemma of Lucca. She was born on the 12th March 1878, and she died on the 11th of April 1903, aged only 25. She's described on Wikipedia, so it must be true, as an Italian mystic, and was canonized as a saint in the Catholic Church in 1940. She's been called the Daughter of the Passion because of her profound imitation of the Passion of Christ and is especially venerated in the congregation of the Passion of Jesus Christ, in other words, the Passionists. So Galgani's relics are housed at the sanctuary of Santa Gemma, associated with the Passionist monastery in Lucca, and her bronze effigy atop her tomb was crafted by the sculptor Francesco Nagni. In 1985, her heart was enshrined in the place in Madrid. So I'm not going to embarrass myself by...
And then, sorry, close to that then there had been St James Secondary School.
Yes, is it closed now?
Oh yeah,
I think it's demolished, I think.
yeah, it was for that modern secondary school.
On that site?
Butler Street, I think, and
Further on the first Flax, Butler Street.
Right, so I think Flax Street's going as well, isn't it?
So
Or-
maybe they just thought the area, well, is that a new street?
It is brand new. Well, no, I say brand new. It's like the last 5-10 years.
Maybe they're just tying in with things that had been in the area.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. So it's maybe a nod to the you know, the original use of the land. I've thought we'll maybe have it after a prominent you know, saint or.
The church was built on the site of what was called the brickyard, so there wasn't actually a street, it was an old brickyard.
And where was the school? Can you remember the?
On where the brickyard was,
The name of the
between, it wasn't on a street.
Yeah.
The nearest,
the name of the street.
it was, the nearest thing to it would have been like our Join Avenue. It was like, there was a flax mill that brought you over to Flax Street,
Oh, yeah.
but it was like a waste ground, that's the way it would.
See, I think Flax Street still exists,
Yeah,
but there's no street sign on it. It runs down the side of the mill, doesn't it? Funny enough, but there's no street sign.
what say with that brickyard was, people would have used it as an access to walk across, but it wasn't a named street.
Mm.
It was where the old brickyard had been.
It's just a lane, really. Yeah.
No, it was just a big area of open space where
Right.
kids would have played. But you could walk across that way and it would have brought you over to what the old Ardine was.
Okay.
And then you would have turned left to go down to Flax Street. And then in front of you would have been like Butler Street and the Ardine, the old Ardine streets.
Cool. All changed now. This is just for Ethan then, the next one then. There's an area off the Cave Hill Road and it's named Little America. So you got Indiana Avenue, Kansas Avenue, Madison Avenue. And so they didn't want all those the Americans there, you know, kind of fighting amongst each other. So they put a common, kind of a link road between them, and they couldn't name it after another American city. So they named it after Canadian city to keep the peace. Vancouver Drive. Are you cheering because you live there, or you're Canadian?
Canadian.
All right, cool. Well, I'll be saying lots about. That's a Belfast Giants joke. So another one then is basically that story is that Canadians can't say about. So that's how you differentiate between an American and a Canadian.
So I'll say about.
All right.
We can tell the difference.
Well, so that's the next one. I'm trying to think of something clever to say, and I just can't do it. The next one is Jellicoe Avenue, down closer to the Shore Road. And Jellicoe Avenue consists of 50 houses approved in 1934, built by the Irish Sailors and Soldiers Land Trust, specifically for Great War veterans. So this is one of those houses here on Jellicoe Avenue. And they're named after this man, Admiral John Jellicoe. And he was a renowned Great War naval commander. He led the British fleet at the Battle of Jutland in 1916. So the only surviving vessel from the Battle of Jutland, probably the largest naval engagement in the Great War, the only surviving vessel is in Belfast, HMS Caroline. So that's I thought it was quite an arty photograph. I grabbed it from online. I'm not so sure now. Maybe the photographer could have done was stand back a bit. But that's HMS Caroline built by Camel Laird in Birkenhead in Liverpool. So there's also Jellicoe Park and Drive and Parade, but they were actually built in the 1960s. So Jellicoe Park, built in the 30s with the ex-servicemen's cottages, but then the subsequent Jellicoe developments, the Drive, the Parade and the Park, were built in the 60s. Again, if you go onto a certain website, it'll say they're all built at the same time. They weren't.
For the centenary of the Battle of Dublin, HMS Caroline was refurbished and reopened on the day of the centenary of the battle. Admiral Jellicoe's grandson, Nick Jellicoe, was in Belfast for that.
Right, cool.
We shared a whiskey.
Oh, you've met him?
Yeah.
Right, cool. And here you are, reduced to this. No offense, even. But so, Leper Street, again, is that correct, pronounced correctly? So Leper Street, the street in the New Lodge, the Leper family owned the Lodge Mill. And this is a map, and you might be able to see it, Lepers Row there, and the artillery barracks, and the North Queen Street, and this is the new Antrim Road here, and Harding with an E Street there. I don't think Harding Street even exists now, but the Leper family had a cotton manufacturing concern founded by Charles Leper and his brother Francis. The mill opened in March 1811, stood between the New Lodge Road and the graveyard of the Belfast Charitable Society. Charles Leper built Leper Lodge, a substantial house with ample grounds which stood between the mill and New Lodge Road. The Lodge Mill was disused, disposed of to a Lancashire firm about 1868 and burned down in 1875. As the cotton trade was not flourishing and it was never rebuilt, it was pulled down about 1885, and Churchill and Dawson Streets now occupy the site. Nearby then, Johnny, can you get me a drink out of my bag, please? Nearby then, Trainfield Street. It's off Spamount Street in the New Lodge, and it's from Trainfield House, built in 1824 by Francis Leper. And the house continued in the occupation of the Leper family until 1866. Trainfield House was so named because of its position near an army drill ground, as pointed out there on the map. The Reverend John McNaughton from 3rd Rosemead Street Presbyterian Church occupied house for a year or two, and then it was acquired by this man. Oh, sorry, that's the house there. Sorry, I beg your pardon. That's Trainfield House, and it was procured by this man, Mark. What's his nickname? Humpy Joe. So he's a man called Joseph Gillis Bigger, known as Humpy Joe. He's a famous Home Rule MP and Parnell's most trusted lieutenant. And he had that big house for Trainfield for a number of years after his father's death, but it was eventually sold to the War Office. It then became known as, this house then became known as, anybody recognize it? No, it's Bernagea. So again, apologies if I mispronounced that. Bernagea is now St Patrick's College, and it opened in 1955. Bernagea translates roughly as the gap of the winds, reflecting the exposed elevated position over Belfast Lock. So, is that a mixed school, boys and girls? I mean, didn't used to be, didn't it? Did it merge with Little Flower or something? So Limestone Road, again, not a million miles from here, was so called from the old Limestone Railway, with which it ran parallel. Thomas Verner, who had the distinction of being the last sovereign of Belfast, in other words, before it became a mayor, the title became mayor, was also the receiver of rents from the Marquess of Donegal. And he acquired from the Marquess quarrying rights on the Cave Hill. and had a principal share in the promotion of the limestone railway for the purpose of carrying the quarried stone down to the quays. The concern was a success for a time, then dwindled away and lay for many years in derelict condition. Finally, the track was filled up and levelled in 1924. Lime was and still is important as an agricultural fertiliser and for construction, i.e. to make cement. So Limestone Road had previously been in part being called Alexander Road or Limestone Street. That was another area quite badly affected by the Blitz. This is from the Hallidays Road, not far from the Limestone Road. So out of the four quarters of Belfast, sadly North Belfast was the most badly affected. So with the majority of the fatalities living in North Belfast. As living in East Belfast, I always thought East Belfast was worse affected, but that's not the case. It's North took the brunt of it. So Luther Avenue, is that pronounced correctly?
We say Luther.
You say what?
Luther.
Luther. Luther.
As we say in our lives.
Well, that's fine. That'll do for me then. Luther Avenue is again in the Limestone Road area, and it's named after Benjamin Disraeli's best-selling political novel, Luther, of 1870. You can see Luther then, this is me trying to take an arty shot with the chimney in it. And I laughed at that. It was Best Kept Street, 1976, but I don't know if we win any awards these days. So that's the book there by Benjamin Disraeli. And again, it reflects a late Victorian trend in Belfast of commemorating prominent literary works and statesmen. Luther is a 3-volume comedy revolving around wealthy young noblemen navigating religious intrigue, radical politics, and high society. I'll give it a miss, thanks. Round the corner then is Hewenden Avenue off the Cave Hill Road, and it takes its name from Hewenden Manor. And this is the little Hewenden Manor, Disraeli's country estate in Buckinghamshire. So that's a close-up of Hewenden. Consingby Street in this area, the Old Park area, which has now been cleared and developed. It was redeveloped, sorry. It was named after another Disraeli novel. I think there is still a Consingby Terrace somewhere around here, possibly in the Antrim Road, but the street itself is gone. And then Disraeli Street, Court and Walk, located in the Upper Shankill, Woodvale area, are named directly after Disraeli. So that's where Luther comes from. Oh, sorry, so I'm pronouncing Disraeli wrong? Desirella, right. There you are. I wish I hadn't mentioned that because it's in West Belfast anyway, so shouldn't have mentioned this talk. The next one then is again not far from Luther Street. It is Oceanic Avenue. I have to thank Mark for telling me about these streets. Oceanic, Atlantic, Baltic, and Pacific avenues is a small network of streets of red brick terrace houses between the Antrim Road and the Limestone Road. And these names were derived from the advanced new ocean-going steamships built by Harland Wood from 1870, establishing the company's reputation as the foremost shipbuilder in the world. So you can see here some of this is the White Star Line and some of their ships that they built. And Oceanic, this is the first one. It was the first steamer built by the White Star Line, setting the company on course to surpass the Cunard Line as the most successful operator serving the premier Liverpool to New York route. And Oceanic was a ship of unparalleled luxury and reliability. Passenger comfort was the main priority. 1,000 steerage-class passengers were also accommodated, segregated into male, married, and female sections. So Oceanic was followed by its sister ships, Atlantic. So that's Atlantic Avenue, again, the postcode there. This is Atlantic here. I don't think the things ended too well, judging by the images for Atlantic, but you know, we tend to specialize in the disastrous shipwrecks here in Belfast. But as long as you remember that Titanic was all right when she left here. And for our Canadian friend here, just to remind people that the captain was English, lookout man was Scottish, and the iceberg was Canadian. So nothing to do with us. So the next one then is Baltic. So it doesn't describe the prevailing weather conditions in North Belfast. It's named after this ship here, the Baltic. It was it followed the Atlantic. The fourth ship then was originally to be called Republic. However, the fourth ship had its name changed to the Pacific. That's not right, sure it's not. I've got it wrong around here. The fourth ship in the series was to be called the Pacific. I knew there was a mistake in this, but I didn't pick it up. But however, its name was changed to the Republic before its launch on the 4th of July, 1871, US Independence Day. Sorry to be offensive. Ethan's fine with it though. But the original name Pacific was kept. So there's Pacific Avenue, not specific as some people say. So then there's the ship there. So it didn't actually exist as Pacific. So that's why it says Republic there. So that's a little quirky story that I have to thank Mark for. It's the Old Park Road where we are now. You can see in this photograph here, there's where we are presently. And Old Park and Deer Park take us back to the first Deer Park in Belfast, which was enclosed by Sir Arthur Chichester in the first decade of the 17th century. According to the plantation commissioners, this park was 3 miles in circumference, and it was enclosed and contained a fortified house, which was occupied by a park ranger. About 1841, the Deer Park fell into disuse and was replaced by another at Cromack. So the original Deer Park then became known as Old Park. In April 1955, David Lyons, who was a merchant, was granted lease for a part of the old Deer Park, commonly called and known as the Old Park. And the Lyons built a mid-Georgian house. And George Benn, the famous Belfast chronicler, wrote in 1877 that Old Park was, quote, a beautiful rural home with fine gardens and trees and a convenient distance from the madding crowd. So that's Old Park. But Deer Park, oh, that's wrong. Deer Park then, Deer Park Road then. And on the application of Messrs. Frederick and Henry McKibben of 9 Donegal Square South, it was resolved in 1928 that the names Deer Park Road and Deer Park Drive be approved for 2 new streets on their property off the Old Park Road. So again, that's a lovely old sign for Deer Park Road. And again, then so that's that, a close-up of that previously. But look at the replacement; it's fairly horrible. Again, that's no comment on the content of the sign. So next one. Oh, sorry, and then there's Deer Park Drive. Sorry, you can see I've done this before. The next one then, there's a series of streets up the top of the Antrim Road on the left, named after Shan. So Shan, again, hope I pronounce this right, Shanleave Park. Shanleave is a 626 metre peak in the south of the Mournes Mountains near Attakal. It's a neighbour of the slightly higher Eagle Mountain. And then Shangarry is a townland in County Carlow. And then Shandara is a civil parish in Templeport in County Cavan. So sadly, Shandara was another area quite badly affected during the Belfast Blitz in 1941. So this photograph, it's from a website, our Facebook page called The Second World War in Northern Ireland. And so this is this is taken a few years ago, but this is immediately after post 1941, more or less the same angle. So you just see the devastation wrought on Shandara Park. So Sunningdale Park, again, the same kind of area. Russell's yawning, must be getting late. So up the top of the Antrim Road, and not far from the castle. But these streets are named after famous golf courses, and they're primarily located on land previously sold by Cliftonville Golf Club. The estate was developed by Sir William Frederick Neal, and features a cluster of roads named after these golf courses, including Sunningdale. Sunningdale is a prestigious golf club in Berkshire in England. So again, very badly affected by the Belfast Blitz in 1941. This is Sunningdale Park after the Blitz, after one of the Easter raids. Nearby then, I say on land previously owned by Cliftonville Golf Club, then with Prestwick Drive, named after a golf course in Ayrshire in Scotland. Then with Wallasey Park, that's named after a golf course in the Wirral near Liverpool. And then another course, Formby, which is in Liverpool in England. Hoylake, again, on the Wirral. And then Coombe Hill is nearby, named after Coombe Hill Golf Club in Surrey. And then finally in this section, Merrick Park, named after a golf course in Dorset. So 6 or 7 streets named after famous golf courses in England and Scotland. So Tweddell Avenue, it kind of starts in North Belfast, but I think it goes into West Belfast. It's named after this man here, William Tweddell. He owned a draper's business in Belfast and was an Ulster Unionist Party member of the Belfast City Council from 1910. He was elected to the Parliament of Northern Ireland for Belfast West for the general election in 1921, until he was assassinated on the 22nd of May 1922 by the IRA. He was walking in the Garfield Street area off Royal Avenue to his business a short distance away. He was followed and shot dead. His death precipitated a clampdown on the IRA. 350 members were interned. Again, I'm used to graveyards. But no one was ever convicted of Tweddell's murder. He was buried in Drumcree Church in Portadown, and his headstone records he was foully assassinated in Belfast. And Tweddell Avenue is named in his memory. So this, I kind of like this bit of is it topiary you call it? What time do you call this? So you'll see then that it's in Valsheda Park. Again, I hope I pronounced that right. Valsheda? Valsheda, sorry. It's in the Ardoyne. And so that's a close-up of it. And this man here is William Lawrence Stevenson. He was the founder of the British arm of the Woolworths retail chain, and he owned a yacht called Belsheda. It was built in Gosford in 1933. He allowed the yacht to be used by racing crews, and in her second season, she won more than 40 races. So the name Belsheda comes from the start of the name of Stevenson's. This is the yacht here. Of Stevenson's 3 daughters, Velma, Sheila, and Daphne. So those merged together. Then that's where Belsheda comes from. Unless Rainer's going to correct me again. So the Improvement Committee, I'm joking, of October 1937 said at the request of Mr. Malcolm McKibben, owner of the property, it was resolved that the name Belsheda Park be approved for a street between Ardoyne Road and Ardglen Parade, in lieu of the name Ardglen Park previously approved. So the remaining portion of the thoroughfare was Ardglen Parade to Ardglen Crescent, it became known as Ardglen Park, which the name had previously been approved. So that's the story behind Belsheda. So I'm not too sure that many people living in Belsheda maybe know where it comes from. So This is a penultimate one just for Ian. That means one before the last. And so this is, again, is it Vicinage? Vicinage Park and Vicinage Place. So that's down basically behind St Malachy's. And this is the Vicinage here. It was the residence of Thomas McCabe, and he was a watchmaker and a United Irishman. It was shown on the Williamson's map of Belfast 1791. The house became a boarding house for a seminary in 1833 and later became St Malachy's College. The word vicinage, according to Mark, comes from neighbourliness. Would that be correct? So he's quite a hospitable person, was Thomas McCabe. And other McCabe subsequently haven't continued that tradition. We're all antisocial articles. So in the 1770s, Thomas was a well-established clock and watchmaker on North Street in the small but growing town of Belfast. By 1777, Robert Joyne and McCabe had set up a small factory in the basement of the poor house, Clifton House, to mechanically card, spin and weave cotton. And this enabled residents of the poor house to learn a trade and to eventually find a career and independence. In 1786, in this building, the assembly rooms, a proposal was tabled by a man called Waddell Cunningham, essentially. He was the richest man in Belfast at the time, to establish a slave ship company in Belfast. And that would enable the setting up of a very lucrative triangular trade between Ireland, Africa, and the Caribbean. So the eternal fame of Thomas McCabe rests on his passionate and compassionate opposal to this. Dr. William Drennan wrote to his sister Martha, explaining that McCabe had written in the proposal book, "May God eternally damn the soul of the man who subscribes the first guinea to the Belfast Slave Ship Company." So that sentiment carried today, and the corporation voted down the proposal. So we have a fellow McCabe to thank for the fact that there was no slave trade, no major slave trade established here in Belfast. So the last one, oh, sorry, that's not the last one. So there's a blue plaque at St Malachy's to commemorate both Thomas and his son, William Putnam McCabe. And Thomas, he's buried in Clifton Street, and it's a very humble grave considering what a stellar and important person he was. So the last one then, again, thanks to Ethan for pointing this out to me, is Windermere Gardens. So again, kind of up the Antrim Road direction, kind of near Chichester Library. There's Windermere Gardens, Grassmere Gardens, and Thirlmere Gardens, all named after areas in the Lake District in England. There's also an Ambleside Street, but I think it's kind of that away. So technically it would be in West Belfast, I suppose. So that's the end of your suffering. It'd be remiss of me not to have locked the doors and to shamelessly plug each of my 8 books. So make yourself comfortable. I'll rattle, yeah, put the kettle on, yeah. If only we had a kettle. This is my first 4 books. The first one's about the city cemetery. So, and amongst the people buried in there was a lot of people from East Belfast, my part of the world. So I was very surprised when I found the final resting place of a man called Samuel David Bell, and in the city cemetery. So he was a successful businessman, had a local business which did well, and but he used his first 2 initials of the company, SD Bell. So you might have heard of SD Bells over in East Belfast, although it started in Ann Street originally, but it's over in East Belfast now. So it's it's Ireland's oldest tea and coffee importers. But so anyway, I contacted the company and said, look, I've tidied up your family grave. You know, it was very, very overgrown. And they said, any chance of a free coffee. So they emailed me back and said, yes, no problem, come up, we'll sort you out. And I said, what about a tray bake? So I ended up getting a latte and a 15, as if I needed it. But so that's how I'm normally paid. Ethan's thinking, oh, that would be a good idea. I could have paid him in crunchy bars or something. Then the second book then was Dundonald Cemetery. I'm from Dundonald originally, but until relatively recently, I'd never been in Dundonald Cemetery. So I do tours in there. Part of the first tour I did there was part of the Eastside Arts Festival. And I said in the blurb for it, I think that's a technical term, you come along and visit the final resting places of Sir Thomas and Lady Dixon, as in the park, Fleming Fulton, as in the school, the Malone Road. And I also said about Horatio Todd's. So Horatio Todd's is known now as a pub, but he was actually a pharmacist working in East Belfast. So it's known locally as High Ratio of Prods. But so imagine when I'm doing the tours there, imagine people's crushing disappointment when I say, right, now we're going to Ratio Todd's, and they think they're going to have a free drink or whatever, and I'm actually, they end up at his grave. So that's, and also I said as well in the blurb for that first tour, come along and visit the final resting place of Henry Joy McCracken. Now, this keyboard warrior got in touch and he says, this is the way keyboard warriors talk. Everybody knows that Henry Joy McCracken is not buried in the Donald Cemetery. So I said, well, you got to come along, and I'm sticking with my tune, with my theory. So he didn't turn up, unsurprisingly. So anytime I call it the grave of Henry Joy McCracken, who's related to the Henry Joy McCracken, I always tell the story about this keyboard warrior, until one day the keyboard warrior at the back, Frank Piggott, said, I am not keyboard warrior. But he was fine about it. So there's a Henry Joy McCracken buried there, obviously a relation to the well-known Henry Joy McCracken. And then a son of his is also commemorated on a side panel. He was with the Royal Flying Corps in 1917. Then they, not long after that, turned into the RAF. And then he died out in Palestine. So he's not actually buried in Dundonald, but he's commemorated there. He's also commemorated in the Strandtown War Memorial. So I think a lot of people walking past there on the 1st of July every year would be, there's a Henry Joy McCracken on the Strandtown War Memorial. So the third book, came out in 2020. Would anybody apart from Jana like to guess when that came out? Came out in 2021, because 2020 was a year unlike any other. So it's 20 graves in each of 20 different local cemeteries. So for example, there's Derry City Cemetery, features in it, 3 different graveyards in Bangor, Movilla Cemetery, and Ards, etc. Pardon me. And then my fourth book was, we're halfway there, was Roselawn 2021. It did come out in 2021 as well. And that's got my granny and granda, Craig, on their wedding day on the front cover. And then on the back's their grave. So then the fifth book was 50 footballers. And so I don't know if anybody's interested in football here. Robert, certainly not. He's a Linfield fan. Oh, Robert and Frankie is a mixed marriage, by the way. Robert's a Linfield fan and Frankie's a Cruise fan. So it'll never work. So 50 footballers. So amongst the people here is Harry Gregg, some guy, George Best, Jimmy Jones and Charlie Tully, who are both Belfast Celtic legends. Sixth book then was about, it was called Where Terror Came by Sea, the Princess Victoria disaster, 31st of January 1953. And then I did a book about this crazy man. I used to say that the living were of no interest to me whatsoever. And then I met this guy called Stuart Barber. So Stuart Barber, BEM now, and he's now raised over £80,000 for Cancer Focus. So he turned 70 a couple of years ago. So I did this book about him. And then any monies that are raised from that book go directly to Cancer Focus. So he's a cricket fan. So that's why it says AAS Barber, 70 not out of 70 quirky stories about Stuart's crazy life to date. And then the current book, which I haven't launched yet, but I've got them now, is 50 Fascinating Females. So essentially it does what it says in the tin. There's also, in the appendix of this book, there's also another list of 50 Fascinating Females who have featured in my previous books. So these are all new discoveries of mine. So available here tonight, pre-launch. That means it includes mistakes, and I can sign it, instantly devaluing it as a tenner, and it will instantly become worth $9.99. Thank you. Justin has asked me to plug my YouTube channel, so it's Peter McCabe's Memorable Memorials, and you can see I like my alliteration. If I should have been called Malcolm or something, or Mark. So we only put up one video a week. They're from really generally Northern Ireland, but we've now branched out. The furthest one away from Belfast in terms of mileage is Dolores O'Riordan, the ex-lead singer of the Cranberries. She's buried outside Limerick, and but also do videos from England. So Cilla Black, for example, surprise, surprise, and Matt Busby in Manchester also feature. So we've got over 1,000 subscribers now. It's free to subscribe. So if you're interested, please subscribe. I say it's for free. The most popular videos would be Blair Main, buried in Movilla Cemetery, but also George Best. Frank Carson is also quite popular, and Alex Higgins as well. He's buried in Carnmoney. I suppose Frank Carson, it gives me an opportunity to tell my favourite Frank Carson jokes. I'll unlock the door shortly. So yes, his mother-in-law took a heart attack, so he wrote for an ambulance. So he walked past a pet shop, and he saw two bumblebees in the window. He says, "Can I buy 2 bumblebees, please?" He says, "Sorry, sir, we don't sell bumblebees in this shop." And he says, "Well, you've 2 in the window." Frankie liked that one anyway. Hey, that's a cracker. But if you haven't seen Frank Carson's grave, which is in Milltown, it does say, that's the way I tell them, and it also mentions about something like, now that I'm up here, I'm sure it's a lot quieter down there. So thanks, Ethan. Thank you, and thanks. Enjoy the rest of your evening, folks. Don't let that spoil your weekend.